A shoebox can hide many things. Old newspapers, toys, craft supplies, or, shoes. Or, as in this case, real treasures. This instrument belonged to our client's father and was brought to us in a shoebox as the original case was lost. When we first talked about it, we did not know what to expect and were positively shocked when we saw the instrument. It is a tárogató made by the company Stovasszer from Budapest. We cannot know its exact age, but based on logos and numbers, more on that later, it is most likely from between 1905 and 1930. It is made of rosewood, lacquered, with nickel-silver keys. For being nearly 100 years old, it is in a very good condition and can be made completely playable after an overhaul. Taking it apart was no problem. Where some rods and keys were bent, it came apart with ease. The material was a very soft metal, so swedging the keys was also fairly easy. On instruments like these, where they are meant to be used in a modern context and historical accuracy is not required, we replace threads with corks, as in our opinion they are the better option. Cleaning the body, however, was a huge task. Especially under the keys, it was covered in a mixture of grease and some other stuff. After removing most of it mechanically, we were faced with the dilemma. The grime could not be removed with water, so we had to resort to using some sort of chemicals. However, the surface is lacquered with an unknown lacquer. The last thing we would want is to risk dissolving the original lacquer of the instrument. We would not go into details about what we exactly used, we do not want anyone trying it at home, but after much careful testing we found the right stuff to use and could carefully remove the dirt. The keys were also polished. Depending on the type of glue used, some pads are very easy to remove, while others put up quite the fight. For cleaning the keys, we use different tools and materials. Most of the visible grease and dirt can be removed without any chemicals. One should only use metal tools for this part on unfinished keys, and even then very carefully. Unfinished keys can be lightly sanded when needed, but we mostly use Unipol metal polish. We rarely polish unfinished keys on antique instruments with a machine. Cleaning takes time. While it is being done, let's talk a bit about what this instrument actually is.
In the Middle Ages, the name tárogató was used for several kinds of wind instruments, but from the 17th and 18th centuries onward it began to be used for double reed instruments with a conical bore, like the medieval salmely or Turkish zurna. We will not discuss the etymology of the name because that would require a more in-depth knowledge of the Hungarian language. Based on descriptions and extant instruments, we believe that it is more likely to be a descendant of Turkish zurna, i.e. of Turkish origin, and has spread in our country on the 16th and 17th centuries, most probably during the Turkish conquest. There are speculations that our ancestors had already brought with them instruments of a tárogató-like nature at the time of their conquest of the Carpathian Basin, but this is not supported by the contemporary descriptions of historical tárogatós or by the surviving instruments. The historical tárogató was used mainly as a military signal instrument, not in enclosed spaces. You will learn why soon. And later became a symbol of national independence during the Rákóczi War of Independence. After the war, the instrument, which was not easy to play, was slowly forgotten. During the 19th century, the need arose to revive the music of the tarogato. At first, attempts were made to copy the surviving tarogatos, but their sounds did not reflect the romantic ideas of the time. Here is a little sample of the sound of a modern-day zurna to give you some idea.
With all the cleaning done, it was time to install new pads. For pads bigger than a clarinet, we generally use shellac, as in our experience, setting up pads with it is more convenient than with hot glue and it is easier to remove when needed. Once again, when an instrument is meant to be played regularly and not just displayed, we use modern materials as they are far better to work with and maintain on the long term. Luckily, this instrument works well with modern pads, unlike many antique ones that require ridiculously thin pads. Yes, this is an outdoor Christmas light. Some tone holes, however, needed refacing. We do this as little as possible on antique instruments to preserve the material. While the pads are being set up, let's listen to a bit more tarogato history.
After the first part of the story, one might wonder what the zurna has to do with the tarogato repaired in the video. Let me tell you more. Like we said previously, many unsuccessful attempts were made to recreate and modernize the original historical tarogatos, but the period between 1850 and 1890 raises more questions than it answers. So, until the 1890s, no real progress was made. And then came Sunda. As it is written in a contemporary poem, Vencel József Sunda did not chase butterflies in Hungarian fields. He was born in Dubec, Bohemia. His brother József Sunda ran a successful instrument factory in Budapest from 1848, which he entrusted to him after his retirement in 1871. Sunda and him becoming Hungarian was already being written about in newspapers in the early 1890s with the greatest respect. He earned this respect and acclaim by inventing the pedalcimbalom. At the request of Gyula Kaldi, at the time director of the Hungarian State Opera, Sunda so skillfully restored a previously disappointing, dried-out, cracked instrument that it regained its full sound and was used for concerts. As a continuation of this, Sunda set about modernizing the tarogato and through his professional discussions and experiments with Gyula Kaldi, created an instrument that has found its way into the hearts of the wider public. This is where the story gets really interesting, as the improved tarogato presented at this time had little to do with the historical tarogato. As we have said before, the original tarogato was a double reed instrument with a narrow tapered bore. The Sunda instrument had a wide bore and single reed clarinet-like mouthpiece. We could also say that we are essentially talking about a wooden soprano saxophone with a German system clarinet mechanism. According to Dr. János Pap, a Hungarian acoustics professor, the name Sundaphone would have been more appropriate, but, as he wrote, in this situation it could not have been called anything else, and of course it would not have been in Sunda's interest either, since he wanted to renew the tarogato, not create a new instrument. Of course, Sunda wanted to protect his invention with a patent and tried to do so on the 17th of September 1897, but 2 days before, someone had already filed a patent application for the improved tarogato under number 11545. First off, the names and numbers in this section may be a little confusing, so brace yourselves. The patent for the improved tarogato was filed by a father-son duo, both named János Tovasser, on 15th of September 1897. János Tovasser Sr. was also not born in Hungary, but in Kraslice, Bohemia. The Tovasser family has been operating a musical instrument factory in Kraslice since 1770, And over the years, members of the dynasty have founded instrument factories in various places throughout Europe. János Tovasser Sr. was famous for his very high-quality instruments and for the invention of the echoing trumpet. He stated that he founded his Budapest factory in 1867, but the first official records we were able to find state 1882. Once again, the timeline is not so simple here, as Stovassers tend to claim opening dates based on other relatives' businesses. For example, the Hungarian Stovasser factory was sometimes stated as being in operation since 1770, but it was actually the original factory in Kraslice. Back then, there was no internet for the average person to fact-check. Back to our story. Since Sunda had been preceded by Stovasser's patent, he could only file the patent as an improvement for patent 11545, which was only accepted by the Patent Office much later, in 1899, with patent number 13545. Of course, Sunda did not accept this, publicly accused Stovasser without naming him of plagiarism and sued him. Years of litigation ensued, the outcome of which has never been published. While researching sources for this video, I found an article in the 48th issue of the Patent Gazette from 1901 reporting that in that year the court upheld Sunda and invalidated Stovasser's patent 11545. Stovasser nevertheless continued to make tárogatós. Although nowadays we consider Sunda is the inventor of the tárogató, the Stovasser instruments are considered more complex and better quality instruments. It's worth mentioning for this story that nowadays we tend to think of the outstanding people of the past as flawless and special people. In fact, it's worth knowing that both Sunda and Stovasser were hardcore businessmen. It is worth asking how this newly constructed instrument could be so highly admired. First, both instrument makers were prominent figures in Hungarian cultural and business life, well connected to major newspapers. If you look through several newspapers of the period, you can almost tell which instrument maker was on good terms with which newspaper executives. Second, unlike the actual historical instruments, the newly invented tárogató sound fit the idea the people of the period had in mind about the romantic past. This is not to say that the modern tárogató is an inherently bad instrument and has not earned its own place in Hungarian culture and heritage. Let's now turn to the instrument marked 19865 in the video and look at the other markings on it. The original 11545 patent is very well known, so I wanted to present the 19865 patent a bit more in depth, but it was a lot more complicated than I expected. Here I present a short version of the story, but if you are interested, you can read more about for free in our Substack. First of all, a layman might think that since we surely know that 11545 is a patent registered in 1897, the other one could certainly be a later patent with the number 19865. If one starts searching among the patents, however, it soon becomes clear that this line of thinking cannot be right. Registered with the Hungarian Royal Patent Office under the number 19865 is actually a lampshade. I would add that in many literatures a number is referred to as a patent number without question, but in some cases it is said to be a model number. The only reference to it being a patent comes from a 1905 newspaper article, however, no official source confirms it. I also looked around in the databases of other countries where it could be possibly patented. This is the Czech Patent Office patent 19865, wheels for cannons or the like. By the Austrian Patent Office, there is also another patent registered under this number, block device with current switching by armature and rake. It is not amongst the trademarks either. What happened to 19865 is a mystery to me. The most likely explanation seems to be some sort of model number. It was also suggested to us that it may have been a random number that seems like a patent number to deter competitors from copying that design. While it would seem like a business practice they could have used, doing so would be punishable by law, so it makes it unlikely. If anyone has any information with resources on this topic, feel free to share with us.
With the instrument assembled and set up, the only problem that remained is the mouthpiece. As the owner of the instrument intends to buy a new mouthpiece and not use the original one, we decided not to touch it, only give it a mechanical cleaning and oil it. The only thing left at this point is to give you a sample of how it sounds. If you like our work and are interested in seeing more woodwind related content, consider liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and head over to our Substack where you can find additional articles on the topics we are discussing in our videos.